I'm going to start incorporating my root.
So you do not need to add all at once, correct?
No, because what happens if I add it all at once? I can put it all in at once, but what can I do after that? I can't take it out, right? So I can always add more to thicken it to get to that consistency that I'm looking for, right? But if I put it all in now, what if I have too much roux in there? Then I've got to add more stock. Okay, and then if I add too much stock, then I've got to add more roux. Now you see what happens? We talked about messing up those proportions, okay? I can always add more to it, but it's pretty difficult to take it out. Okay, now we start to see it, it's thickening up nicely. I'm going to add a little bit more. And you see I have two different utensils, right? Thank you, ma'am. I have a spatula and I have a whisk. Why am I not using the spatula to incorporate the roux into the stock? Lucy? How? You're on the right track, okay? So the spatula I'm going to use to fold in to make sure, you know, if I got wet and dry ingredients, heavier ingredients, but if I'm whisking a liquid, okay, I want to incorporate that roux throughout that stock and I'm going to aerate it, okay? Look at the whisk itself. So we got all those separations in there, right? So I'm going to get a much better emulsion of product. I'm going to emulsify that stock and that roux much more evenly and much more consistently. Okay? So I'm looking for a very specific kind of consistency. Can anybody tell me what that consistency is? What's that? Nappé. And what does that mean?
Go to the back of a spoon.
You can run your fingers through it
And it won't come back. So nappé means we're going to coat the back of the spoon, and if we run our finger through it, as it doesn't come back in on itself. Okay, very good, John. Thank you. Okay. So this is just the most basic of basic. Okay, I'm not going to season it. It's unnecessary right now to season it. If you're going to make a bechamel, okay, a contemporary bechamel, it's going to be milk or heavy cream thickened with a white roux. A veloute, same exact thing, but we're using a blonde roux and a stock. Okay. Typically for a veloute, we don't want it as heavy as a bechamel. Okay. Bechamel we're going to use for cream sauces. Veloutes we're going to use for finishing sauces. We're making chicken and dumplings, something that probably everybody's familiar with, right? We'd want to use a veloute rather than a bechamel, okay? But in chicken and dumplings, we're going to get further thickening from the dumplings themselves. If we're making mac and cheese, well, the pasta's already cooked. I'm going to have the cheese in there. I need something to hold that all together and to bind that a lot more, okay? So, yeah. Veloutes, remember, we want to let it simmer a little bit.
Some spoons right there, William, please.
Why do I want to let it simmer? What am I doing? It's already pretty thick, right? But what do I have to do by simmering it? Take a guess. No, not really. Okay, because we don't have any flavors there.
What
Okay?
happens when it evaporates? We talked about this.
Kyle, what's that?
It gets thinner.
It gets thinner or what? I used a blonde roux and a white chicken stock or a chicken stock, okay? What do we know about the difference between a white roux and a blonde roux? And a brown roux? What's the difference between those three? And please, don't say the color.
I think they are.
How thick they are, the consistency. Remember, the longer we cook the roux, the what? The less what it has. Thickening properties, right? Or thickening ability, okay? So if I were gonna make a bechamel, if I added a white roux to it, I'm gonna have to cook that the longest, right? Okay? Or the least amount of time, I'm sorry, because that's got the most thickening property, right? Blonde roux's got slightly less, but I have to let it simmer to cook out that starch. So let those starch granules bloom in that liquid so that they can absorb the liquid to give us that thickening or that thickness that we're looking for, right? It's another reason why we don't add all of our roux in at one time, okay? So depending on the color of the roux, depending on the temperature of the roux, okay, those starch granules may already be expanded so much that as soon as they hit the liquid, they're going to start to absorb that stock or that liquid, right? Okay.